Can we talk about your Don't Tell set for a second?
Sure.
So his Don't Tell set was the day of your Broadway debut.
Oh my God.
And what day was that?
That was October 7th.
Yeah, it was.
That was
wasn't
October
it?
7th. And it was so
Big
funny.
day for the two of us.
Huge day for us.
Huge day.
Yeah.
We did. You can. We can. I'm going to keep this super vague about JFL, and we can cut it if you hit it. But it was so funny.
Oh, we don't have to be. I mean, we'll see.
Yeah, we can be vague about the person. I guess the
Maybe.
individual. You're welcome to say whatever you like.
Okay, I'll think about it.
You had some great. Your JFL set was great.
Thank you.
And you had a chunk. You had two chunks in specific that related to the Jews. There was the death to all Jews part.
No, okay.
then
Well,
there-
no,
I'm just
well,
kidding.
No,
No, there was
no, there's
there
nothing
was-
about Jews.
No, it was about Kanye.
About Kanye and what.
But it related to the. I think it related to the Jews.
But
I
yes.
think of it. Yeah, but it was just about how defending Kanye.
Yes,
You used to be a Kanye defender.
We have to make this clear of what I
make it
what
really
I said.
clear.
You can't.
We're gonna
off
do a
the
link
top-
to the
Yeah,
set.
yeah,
can't
yeah.
off the top say
I'll
it.
summarize
like,
it.
here-
Are you crazy? you nuts? You're trying to kill me?
You started the set with one of your characters where you came out with a
The Muslim Jew.
the Muslim Jew. Go see the set. We're gonna put the set.
Yeah, watch the
Everyone's
set.
seen it.
Yeah, watch
Did
the
you
set.
watch it?
Not yet.
Literally, I sent you one thing to watch before.
And
tonight.
I wanted to meet him
problem.
first and
No
then
problem.
watch it.
Yeah.
You know?
Watch
Yeah,
the
yeah,
set.
yeah.
Yeah,
I like to be fresh.
But ultimately, the punchline is: so I still listen to Kanye West sometimes.
Yes.
And it was because, tell me if I get this right. Your grandma, when living in Lebanon, at some point there were some IDF people doing some kind of practice with military weapons.
Yes.
My mom, raised over in Lebanon, she tells me wild stories about what that was like for her. In 1982, Israel invaded Lebanon. One day, the Israeli military fired a missile at my grandma's house, and it broke through the wall and just landed inside and just spun out. And they all just had to like back away from the missile and just like pray that nothing happened. And then the Israeli military just came and like scooped it up. They're like, sorry about that. And then they just took it and left.
And they fired a missile
Yes.
through her window into the kitchen, and it didn't go off.
Into the home. Just went all throughout the house. Bopped in and around, bumped into things, and then eventually just stopped.
Oh my God.
And not like a cute bumping, like a cartoon, like
No,
boing,
destroying
boing, boing,
things.
boing.
No,
Destroying.
yeah. There wasn't like ding, 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 ding. No, it was like smashing through walls
Yes.
and then stopped on the ground, and then they like heated up the whole floor, so they had to like put sand
Oh
on
my
the
God.
floor to like be able to walk in to go and get it, and then took it outside.
Hold up. It heated the whole. It was so hot that like what kind of floor? Like tiles and just.
Probably just concrete.
And they had to like pick it up thinking.
My grandma just
Could-
picked it up. She was like
it could
pregnant.
go
with-
off.
My grandma picked it. She was pregnant with my uncle. She just picked up the missile.
Oh
What
my
the fuck?
God.
I know.
We were next to a car that was on its side. We drove by an accident, and I was scared that car was going to explode. Let alone
Yeah.
a missile. I'm not
Oh
touching
my
that thing.
God.
She went and got it. I think her and then somebody else like they both like picked it up and like took it outside. And then the IDF just came by and they were like, "Oh, sorry, sorry about that." And then they just took it and then they left and then they went back.
And the punchline is, so I still listen to Kanye.
So when
Yeah.
Kanye comes on, I don't shut it off.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Which, by the way,
Yeah.
to be fair, nobody does.
No,
the playing
nobody
of
does.
Kanye did not change one iota.
Unless
No,
it's the new stuff.
This was before the new stuff.
yeah.
Before the new stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
This is
yeah.
before the new stuff. And
Which-
the thing I say before that, it was that he said all these things, and I was like, this better be a great album. I mean, which is not.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
Yeah,
this
no.
better be a good album.
Yeah.
Which it has
Yeah.
not been.
No.
There are a couple tracks on there which make me go, all right, whatever.
Really?
Couple tracks.
I got to try to listen to it. It's not the same.
Yeah,
for
put your
me.
biases aside.
I promise you, I'm able to listen to Kanye with an open heart and an open mind. But it was just funny. There was a person of Jewish descent who
Yeah, an older woman, we'll say.
Oh, I know who it is.
You know who it is.
Yeah.
An older Jewish woman from New York
but
who
I just,
took great issue with my set.
Did she tell you?
Well,
which, by the way, let me just say, like, fully jokes aside, there is nothing in this set. I say far it's perfectly constructed, the logic of it, and there's nothing.
No, I'm very.
You tell a story about a thing that occurred.
That occurred, and I was very careful to be like, I don't want this to bother. I don't want anybody to misconstrue this as anti-Semitism. I was very careful about doing it, of just being like, this is a joke about sort of like, and I know this is like a woo-woo-y, but it's like moral clearance, you know, like this thing happens to you, so I feel like I can do this.
Yeah.
Sure, and it wasn't. It wasn't even on. For my money, it wasn't even on the line, in terms of like.
I didn't think so.
It wasn't.
What was the issue? What was
it was. I remember the Kanye line. I just remember one time there was just like that's a terrible joke. And it wasn't like the quality of the joke, but like that you'd still listen to Kanye is a terrible thing. And I was like, there's Kanye playing right now in the green room.
Yeah.
But did you have a discussion? Was there ever like a discussion period?
Not a real discussion, because you told me after the fact that she had, because I would be out of the room and she would be backstage listening to my set, and I found out after the fact that she would just be making such a stink every night.
Really?
About my set, about
I never saw her go off too much, but there was maybe
every night she would. The first night I got in the back, she's like, "Oh Jesus Christ!" And then I got to say her whole set after that, and I don't think that it was initially supposed to be that way, was about Israel.
Oh.
She did her whole. I had like a chunk of it.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember like her whole set was like, "It's a democracy." I don't want to do the voice too much, but
I mean, I don't know how you could have done it any more than you already did, but I feel like I'm at your English class in high school. But what I thought was so. And by the way, this was before. This was before October 7th. This was where,
so
like,
I don't even know what I could have been talking about.
if we're
Because
even
nothing
looking
ever
at, like-
happened
Yeah,
before October
nothing
7th, so I
ever
must have. I don't know what I even was referring to. What could I have been talking about that she was upset about?
October 7th.
I wonder what she was even mad about back
My
then.
God.
But it was so funny because I feel like even the material about Israel, and this is with like a lot of like liberal Jews in New York, where it's just like, listen, Netanyahu is a fascist, but and I go like, well, if the head of the thing is a fascist, then clearly there's no way you can just be like, well, the enterprise is okay, we'll take care of the fascist later. But I think like, especially because Netanyahu was friends with Trump, there was very much a full-on where liberal Jews would go, fuck Netanyahu, and then suddenly there was no like even squaring of well, then it is strange to support the person. Like you wouldn't expect someone who hated Trump outside of America to then be like pro-Trump. It was very frustrating.
It was insane. Yeah, it was like such a cognitive dissonance, like you just couldn't talk to this person about it.
And they're it's so quick to all of a sudden being like, if Hamas was in control, they would throw you off a building, and you're like, what are you?
Yeah, it was very much that.
Where do we even get to that? Like, where do we even get to anyone being like? It's just like a wild.
Yeah, it was very much like go and wear that skirt over there and see what happens.
Yeah, just to the degree of like, okay. What about you think the missiles that were being sent from Israel over there were not hitting the gay people at all either?
Yeah.
You think it was they were there?
No, they were just in the closet at that point.
Sure. Yeah.
They need some time.
But so it was.
You need a closet to come out of. You can't destroy a whole building. There's no closet to come out of at that point.
Of course.
Yeah.
I saw it was Sridhar who we had on. He said this was when they were talking about there were 40 beheaded babies, which there's been shown to be no evidence of this particular thing. But he had the tweet that said, "Do you think when a bomb is dropped on a building that the baby's head stays on the body?"
I know. Well, this is the thing that comes that is very like it happens every time, which is and it's America and it's Israel as well, which is like. These people are killing people like animals, not in the beautiful way that we kill people.
Not in the nice, clean,
amazing,
sort of rich way that we
just
do
kind
it.
of dissolve their whole being in 1 second.
And we don't have to be there to do it. We can sit
and there's no profile pieces. There's no profile pieces. There's no here watch the interview with this person who went through that because they're fucking dead.
Yeah.
So it's just like your entire intake of the world is one-sided.
Yeah.
And it obviously was so complicated after October 7th. Like there were people that like the Flyers was big, like the Flyers was such a gigantic
I would say 5 days after it was complicated.
I
would say 5 days after it happened that was like the only time where I ever like felt like okay, this is actually complicated.
Sure.
Because when people were like, it's complicated over there, it never was to me. The 5 days after October 7th, I'm like, this is a complicated time. And
Sure.
then since then, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not again.
Of course. I think the bottom line is that if you have to be willing to say, if you think it's complicated still, or if you think like, or if you think like, oh, well, Israel's just doing what it needs to do, you have to at least admit, and I think you should have to admit publicly, that you don't value life equally.
Yeah.
And the problem is that people their whole existence they would go, of course I value life equally. I'm like, you cannot say that and then look at these numbers and these things. It's impossible.
You cannot look at the numbers and then try to talk to me about like, well, what about the hostage? You're like, what are you talking about? Like what? Like, and obviously, there's hostages on both sides.
First,
what are you
first we need to get rid of Hamas. I'm like, the thing that you're saying is not like a thing that is you're going to get rid of an ideology or a group.
No, there's always caveats well, you admit this thing and then we can start talking about it, where it's like it's just to kind of dissolve your whole argument so that you've kind of already knelt, you've kind of already gave them your hand.
Yeah.
It's like you have to say about the hostages, of course free the hostages.
Of course, free the hostages.
Of course free the hostages.
I don't see actions being taken by Israel to make that happen.
No, they're
at all.
And the trajectory happened like you would assume, where it basically was like there were people very it was like, well, they gotta defend themselves, and then gradually it's like, oh, and look, here the numbers are going up, people are dying, and then gradually people are making more in America, at least are getting frustrated.
Yeah.
And it's just like, yeah, this is exactly the trajectory. And then you're gonna look back and you're gonna go, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I never said we should do this.
I know. Every time.
The changing of the thing too, imagining in like 10 years when people are like, wow, that was awful. And you're like, what are you talking about? Like people were saying it was awful.
Yeah.
And it was a mass thing to get people to shut the fuck up in every single level. And it's maddening because it's a
really crazy time. Emil Wakim's joke about it, I want to quote.
Just quote it. I love Emil.
He said, if you're ever wondering on how you should feel on an issue in the Middle East, just don't take the side that America's on. Very simple.
Sure.
0 for 30
yeah.
in the region.
Yeah. Really?
Shout out to Emil.
Yeah.
So you were going to do a lot of the set that I saw for this Don't Tell.
What you see in my Don't Tell set is exactly what I planned to do.
Yeah.
I woke up that morning, and the day before that, I was already gonna tell these jokes about Israel.
You can't. This is a big deal. Don't Tell set. You're gonna move to America.
I just got an American visa. It's my first American thing. It's my first like actual professional American job in comedy, and it's like the Don't Tell taping. This is essentially can do sort of what the Tonight Show used to do. You know.
Yeah.
It's a very big thing, you know?
The Tonight Show.
Oh, wait, let's run that back. I don't want to poo-poo the Tonight Show.
No. Oh, my God. Oh, too late, buddy. This is the poo-poo on the Tonight Show podcast.
No. We love the Tonight Show.
No. I meant that Don't Tell is very successful. But the Tonight Show used to be, you'd have a sitcom after it.
Mm-hmm. And maybe,
I guess maybe my Don't Tell set was good enough. I just don't understand. But he does a brilliant thing in the clip that I asked you to watch before you came here. Is after he does the set, before he does his closing joke, he remarks on the fact of seeing October 7th that day and being like, but my Don't Tell set.
Bro, when I woke up today and saw the news, I was like, my taping.
And it was so it's kind of like you had to do something, but it was so brave to do in a taping. I know that.
Yeah, it was
to do. I mean,
a very charged moment.
It was a charged moment, but also like you. I mean, you had to.
I wanted to say something about how like that was like we're at like a turning point in kind of it felt like the world, and because of just what happened to be like that, it was a day that I had to do something that I woke up and saw it, and I was like, oh no, like for me, like I was like, oh no,
oh my God,
and it was so smart when you had thought before you went on, like, okay, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna reference this. You're serious?
Yeah.
Really, a full on in the moment?
I'm serious. Yeah.
You didn't ask any. You didn't say. You didn't call a friend and go like, fuck, dude, do I have to like do a line?
No, because I didn't talk to anybody that day. It was a very sad day until
Yeah.
the taping, and then like nobody knew what was gonna happen, and I was like, I don't even know if I'm gonna do this joke, and then if I'm just gonna get dead silence from people. But I think people
Absolutely, it could have
Right.
happened.
I was like, I'm just gonna go for it, and then I just kind of think like everybody had been like so on like the edge of their seats that day about like just wondering what was going on, and then I just like I kind of remarked on the issue as it's always been the issue,
Yeah.
just kind of as it's always sort of been in that region of like this is kind of what has been always happening, and then I think like I felt that it went well. Like and like literally in my relief, I kind of had that riff
Yeah.
of like, thank God.
It was so good.
Can I tell you, I was so in my head about having, because I was surprised I was going on that day for.
You riffed
show.
that line in the middle of the second
Shut
act.
up, shut up. But
Where you
I
said,
was
from the river
so,
to the sea,
I
Broadway will be free.
I shut up. But I was so surprised that I didn't. I was so panicked and looking at my script. I didn't look at the news at all. I didn't know anything had happened until after I had performed. You texted me something about it, and I was like, "What is he talking about?" And I like went on Twitter. I was like, "Oh,
What did I text
no
you?
idea." Oh, I'll tell you later. But you texted me something. But also in the show I was in, there was all these references that then over the next 2 weeks were super weird because it was like a joke of like a joke in the show. It's these two guys putting on a show, and it's set in olden German times. And the joke was that it's about Gutenberg, the guy who invented the printing press. Nothing to do with Germany. And
Very silly, though, to be clear. Like
very silly. But they were like, for this show to be important, we also have to work in some important issues.
Yeah.
And like the Holocaust. And so like it just as a joke. So like a punchline throughout the show.
Just as a joke.
Throughout the show, every once in a while, they remind you, and they'd have like a little Nazi character come in and be like, I hate Jews.
She was wearing a hat.
And she wore a hat that said, I hate Jews. And so and I'm playing this girl.
The hat said, I hate Jews?
No, sorry. It says little Nazi girl or they changed it.
They
It went
changed it
around
from Nazi girl to anti-Semite?
anti-Semite, yeah.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah, and actually that was worse. So then they went back to Nazi.
Oh, it's so
It went from Nazi to anti-Semite, and then they were like, actually, anti-Semite is less funny now than Nazi, so they went back to Nazi.
This whole brainstorming is racist.
I know, but no, but it was all, but that whole thing of the show, which was a day before. Everyone laughed at because you're far enough removed from it. Was then now this weird thing, but I didn't feel it when I went in. But
You didn't feel it that day of
that
like
day, not that day, but then when I would watch the show that next week, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
they're gonna have to make some, and they made some adjustments to make it work.
You're listening to The Downside
The Downside.
with Gianmarco Soresi.